but
Okay. Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to announce the return of Melanie Vritschan. She, as many of you know, she's been away for quite some time after the birth of her daughter, and now she is back with us, and I'm very, very pleased to announce her return. Hi, Melanie. So how are you doing?
hi, Katherine. I'm doing fine. Thank you.
So actually, there was lots and lots of stuff happened in the meantime. Today, actually, I have to apologize to people. I think this event was announced wrong because I announced it as under the German label of Techno-Kriminalermittler. But actually, tonight it is an English-speaking general fundraising for Melanie and her human rights charity ICATOR that is of international importance. So we decided to. It was my mistake. I have misannounced the entire event because it was on Friday. So I was thinking it's the German version, but actually, this is in English. So everybody who is now listening, please tweet it out and correct it so that people join us here. So today's episode will be entirely dedicated to actually the fundraising endeavor and talking about ICATOR and the plans, because we know that a lot of people have been asking what's happening with the chip scanning and so on and so on. And many people have been asking about the well-being of Melanie and her daughter. And we are very, very grateful for all the care and the interest that people have shown us, because frankly, when the going was tough, that is what kept us going. So I would like to turn the microphone over to Melanie so that she can give us an update and tell us what she's been up to and what has been happening in her own words, and basically check in with her big followers, big group of followers who've been asking about her. So Melanie, let me turn over the microphone, and in the meantime, I'll quickly correct the labeling of this video.
Okay. Well, regarding the label of this video, we can also do, of course, a Techno-Kriminalermittler session afterwards, or this weekend, or when we have a moment. So right now, yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank our viewers of the enormous interest that and the many inquiries we have received regarding my personal situation. So the only thing I can say to this at the moment is that, as you can see, I am out of the psychiatric services, psychiatric unit of Erasmus Hospital, and I'm doing well. So regarding my daughter, I'm not going to comment anything because this is an ongoing trial, an ongoing procedure. Regarding ICATOR, and that's why we're here today, the news is that I don't know if most of our viewers are familiar what we do, but I will just remind it. We provide victims of non-consensual experimentation and implantation with COVID technology with scientific evidence of the crimes committed against them. And we do this in scanning people, as Katherine said at the beginning, in a Faraday cage, in a controlled environment, to see if they emit radio frequencies, which, as we do this in a controlled environment with the help of one of the major universities in Belgium, we can, that this is a way to prove that the emissions are actually coming from the human body, and thus that the person is implanted against his or her consent. So the last news that I gave was that we have indeed established, and Katherine has also been instrumental in this, a collaboration with the university, and with the great help of two of our donors, who we would like to thank again, Amalia and Hannelore. At the time, we were able to do 2 scanning sessions with a group of, I believe, 11 people, and we also had a control group. And these results were very interesting, and were also very interesting to the university professors, actually. And thus they have decided that it is important and necessary that we get to the bottom of this, and we find out if people are non-consensually experimented on. and they're happy to help us with this and continue to work. But of course, for such a project, we need a budget. So the donations that we had received are now are now finished. They have been used for these first tests, but we would like to have this as a long-standing project, as a longer running pilot project, humanitarian. This is humanitarian issue, so we would really welcome more donations so we can continue this scientific effort and give more and more people the scientific evidence of the crimes committed against them using these new technologies, which are actually not that new. It is just that now more and more nanotechnology is used, and that is unfortunately not detectable otherwise. So if people would like to support us, we have the ICATOR website. Katherine is always giving the details in the description. It's icator.be, so ICATOR.be. And there you have a GoFundMe page, and you can donate there if you would like to support this humanitarian effort. And I would like to thank you already in advance for your support. I give it over to Katherine again, because she might also have some news.
Exactly, I was following the chat. I was just busy with correcting the actual title of this. I have tweeted out that this entire episode is in English. So with time, I can see that already a batch of English speakers has already joined us. So there are lots of people in the chat and watching us live. Yes, so the actual status, and I think this is, says people know I'm involved in supporting 2 court cases already. That is the court case of Siegfried Thomas in Biel in Switzerland. And the other case is the one of Frédéric Laroche in France. So I'm in both cases involved as an expert witness to the court cases, and I am first of all as a victim myself, and also as a scientist. I'm on the one hand aware how extremely difficult it is to get very good and reliable evidence that other people find convincing. But on the other hand, I also know the value of actually putting in work and putting in financial investment into actually getting solid, scientific evidence. So the cases that I'm dealing with are, on the one hand, the case of Siegfried Thomas and his wife. There, it's mostly about directed energy weapons so far. Up to this point, there's not yet any indication of implantation. The other case of Frédéric Laroche has some development, because actually Frédéric did find out that he's implanted just like I am. He used a bug detector to actually scan himself. And as people know, so already when you collect lots and lots of testimonies and actual bug scans with the bug detector that I always advertise, the Atseco, because it is the cheapest and the simplest, if you combine lots of victim cases, you can actually oh, sorry, I've just discovered, I'm so sorry, I was the image was entirely on Melanie. I'm so sorry. Yes, forgive me. I have to basically click so that it doesn't switch, and then I didn't realize in all the the changes I had to do. So so once more here you can see me and my face. So as people know, the quickest way when victims come to us and they quickly want to find out what's happening to them and where does the pain come from and what is being done to them, the first step that's very important is to establish, are there any chips or are there none? Okay, so this is why I'm advertising this bug detector. I think it's 170 euros and everybody can buy it. And that bug detector gives us a very good indication. For example, this is how Melanie showed me that I'm implanted. She did a little test in a Faraday cage, just a simple Faraday cage I bought, which was kind of this netting that's sold by Aronia. And the bug detector itself gives you a first indication, and it is intended to, first of all, for you to know that there might be chips in your body, and then once you know that, and once you know where the chips are, you can much better distinguish an external attack from an actual torture event where the chips are used to cause you pain, which they can. So this is what the bug detector is for, and I think if we really pushed hard, one of the things I see more and more is that with every victim, the chips seem to be in the same point. So when you have this comparatively cheap bug detector, and every, you know, I say cheap, but at the end of the day, it is a scientific measuring device for high frequency, specialized for high frequency emissions.
Correct. This is also used by various private investigators, by the way.
Exactly.
So it is, I think, yeah, it's a reliable device for the detection of non-consensual implants.
Yes, exactly, and it is you know, very good. But of course, if you want to go to court, and especially what we're working towards is first of all, prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt, and second of all, set up a mechanism to do it for many people, because we know that the number of people implanted in the population is absolutely staggering. Most people, like myself, do not know that they are implanted. I only found out last May. So what I want to explain to people, so that they think, why on earth do we have to work with the university, and why are we asking for money again if this can be done with a 170 euro bug detector? The reason for that is as follows. The bug detector is absolutely excellent in my experience to find the bugs, you know, in the first installment. Then, you know, what you would have to do is, because it is very simple. I chose that device because it has the biggest frequency range that it covers that I've found on the market. And it is so simple that literally everybody can use it, even people who have absolutely no technical skill, you know. And this is why I chose the bug detector. However, it has several shortcomings, and that is it doesn't show you the frequency. Okay, it doesn't show you the frequency, and it is a bit fiddly because it has such a wide range. Okay, so any sort of background like your Wi-Fi, your cordless telephone, your you know, remote controlled garage openers will contribute as a background and can give you false positives. If you have a lot of patience, actually not that much, but you know, you need a bit of time and a bit of you know, patience with this, or if you just go out into the forest with zero background, you can still find these chips. So it is reliable. And as I said, if you just use the bug detector, you would have to combine video testimonies of other certified victims scanning themselves under fairly obvious and controlled conditions, and then you can, it still should stand up in court, okay, as a first installment to prove your case, you know. But what we are working towards is, first of all, at the moment when we started off, we didn't have all this video testimony. I actually am surprised to see how more and more victims send me videos where they scan themselves and they find the chips always in the same places. That's one thing, but a court would also want to have much more reliable evidence that is not affected by backgrounds. So this is why we work with this university in Belgium, because they have a professional Faraday cage, an entire room that is fairly well shielded. And within that, they have also got specialist equipment that none of us could really afford, unless you're a multimillionaire target, which, you know, they exist, but they don't tend to come forward. You know, you know, unless you're one of them, you know, you can't afford the actual measurement devices. So there's specialist equipment for excellent, really professional measuring of high frequencies. One manufacturer is called Rode and Schwarz, so Rode and Schwarz in English, and that's a German arms manufacturer. Yeah, you wouldn't have guessed, but they also sell excellent measuring equipment. So if you can get your hands on one of those devices, they are excellent. So, but basically what we have tried to do is to set up measurements in a controlled environment, okay, so that people don't have to go out individually into the forest. So with an actual professional Faraday cage, which the university has, and also they have this really expensive equipment, okay. So we did already 2 scans. Now the first scan had some preliminary results. And despite the fact that there was a lot of, you know, sabotage surrounding the scanning event, it was actually a thundering success, because we did find strange signals coming out of human bodies. So this was in last May, in May 2017. Now, we first of all had to wait for the analysis results, and we had to get everything going. And then we managed to get a second appointment with the university where Melanie and I went. And our idea was that we wanted to work with the university to really hone the actual precise measurement method of measurements before we, get everybody else to incur big expenses for travel and accommodation to come to the scanning, because these people are traveling in from all around the world. So the second scanning, this is to explain to people why you haven't been invited to the second scanning. It was because we couldn't invite people, because if you invite people, we have to invite everybody, and the first scanning session was far too unwieldy. Basically, you have to take care of dozens of people, and was far too expensive. But the money was not wasted of the first scanning event, because it was only because of the results of the first scanning event that the professor even gave us the time of the day, okay? Because if we hadn't shown all that, I really trust the guy we are working with at university. I think he is very honest. And at no point, and people know I've got a very sensitive bullshit detector, but at no point did I feel that, we were somehow tricked, or there was any sort of background, or that he was contacted. No, actually the scanning was excellent, and I was impressed by their scientific approach. So we went back in October and we did a second scanning, and the second scanning again showed these sort of results. Okay, so we have now confirmed it, and this is why the university wants to work with us. So now the step is the following. In the meantime, as you can imagine, eventually monetary and administrative pressures descend down on people. So the professor told us after the scanning, I think we got the results, and I don't know, it was, I think late November or something like that. But
yes, I think I had already given birth when we got them. I think.
Yeah, I think so. It was
sometime in November. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got the results in November, and then we had a very good discussion with the professor. He said yes, he is very willing to work with us and continue to work with us, but because an actual involved study, because now what we're really doing is we're doing an involved study to reverse engineer what's going on, find the chips, and actually set up a machinery to allow people to get scanned at one place. Yeah. This is basically an actual involved research project, and the professor said, well, his department can't just give the lab and rent it out like that, for all the love in the world. It actually costs money. And he said that the actual cost of the lab is 1,200 euros per day. So if you have
1 day of scanning, that is indeed, I can confirm the price, 1,200 euros. There have already been 2 days now, which they have entirely financed. And I think Katherine explained it very well. It is indeed, the idea is to mount an international study that we can then later use as scientific evidence in court, and that would be signed, because we have more and more experts, really credible experts, come and help us. That can be signed by the university and the Department of Microwave Wave Studies, and that will do in court as definite scientific proof.
Exactly, and basically what we're trying to do is set up this entire infrastructure. But then the situation was as following. So we got the results, and I think we spoke to the professor. I think it was the end of November, with email exchange early December. Now by early December, I had already fled my home because of the machine gunning in my home. So as people know, I was for I think 2 weeks or almost 2.5 weeks in hiding abroad. In the home of somebody who actually gave me refuge, because the machine gunning of my body in my home in Zurich had become unbearable. So this basically took up the entire first half of of December, and I was away from everything and under extreme stress. And then I had to go back, first of all, for Christmas, and second of all, I needed physical recovery time, because what I'd gone through in December was absolutely inhumane. So I spent pretty much 3 weeks after Christmas actually in hiding at my parents' home, trying to work, where again I was machine gunned into absolute oblivion, and not having the actual bunker surrounding me. It was extremely hard, but it was safer for me to be with my family than to actually come back here. So what happened then is that I took up this collaboration at the end of January with Andreas von Stockhausen, a collaboration that I have now terminated because, yes, for reasons that maybe become clear later on. But that, again, wasted about 2 or 3 weeks. So now, in the meantime, I'm involved in the court case of Siegfried Thomas that was on the 1st of February. And I'm still working on that, and the case for Frédéric Laroche. So this is my side of the equation, which you have to know, because Melanie and I had the following idea, and I think this is why there was such a massive crackdown and physical, takedown operation against me. What happened is that actually we had decided that we wanted to apply for EU funding and actual government funding, because this is an extensive research project in the public interest and also fighting crimes against humanity. Now, to actually prepare a research project, when this is done in particle physics, this is, I mean, from the experience there, I know how hard it is to get money from the EU or any government funding body in the most of the time, let alone when you want to prove that the government has been committing crimes against humanity and an active genocide, then the money is even tighter. So basically, because of the the huge amount of actual, frankly, scientific work and administrative burden that would have fallen on me, the entire application to these funding bodies has not happened yet, because I'm basically at the physical and time limit of what I'm capable of. So this is why it hasn't happened since. Now, the reason why we haven't been giving updates about this, because it was all, when you look back, you realize, okay, for 4 months, we didn't do anything. But as you are struggling along the 4 months, you always keep thinking, okay, I'll do it next week and next week. And then we're hit by ever newer things. So basically, fleeing my home, being utterly machine gunned at my parents, being frankly what I consider let down by the new collaboration I wanted to start, and then also the death of Dr. Paul Marco on the 6th of February has literally taken their toll on us, and me especially. So this is it. Now, what is the situation going forward? I still think that submitting an actual proposal to government funding bodies is the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, these are crimes, state crimes. This is state terror, and private people should not be expected to use their own funds to fight a government that is using their funds through taxpayer money to mutilate them to death. Okay, so at some point, any responsible government organization, and I do trust that the EU still has some responsible people somewhere hidden in its crevices, those people would have to, stand up with us and say, yes, this is something to be funded. Now, this is in an ideal world, okay, which I think by now we've all figured out doesn't exist, given that, most of us are implanted who are watching the show. So, in the ideal world, the EU grant application is the best way to go. However, in the current situation, I have to be honest, I think Melanie and I, we disagree on how much work is actually involved in this grant proposal. I could throw up when I think about it, just because I have done it, and I have been involved in this sort of stuff previously in academia, exactly this sort of stuff. And I just worry. So my suggestion is, and this is something that I would like to put out into the community and discuss, is I'm wondering if maybe it would be much better if we just, sat down and did individual fundraising, for a day of scanning for the event. This is something I'm seriously proposing now, because 1,200 euros for 1 day of scanning is a lot, but it's not the earth. And frankly, we might have a better chance collecting that money ourselves than waiting for the EU machinery to maybe one day in 5 years' time give us, 2 million euros and solve all of our problems like that. they could.
And I would like to jump in because Katherine says that we actually disagreed on this, and I'm well aware how much work this is, and I've also, I don't want to say my former life, but my former work, I had to reply to calls for tenders and get EU money actually, or try to get them. So I do not want to say that we disagree on this. As Katherine says, the idea to apply for EU funding is still on the table, and we'll get to this, at a later stage. But right now, given the extreme mutilations that people are subjected to and the extreme torture and the danger for their health and for their lives, we cannot wait until we have actually succeeded in getting EU money. So I totally agree. But we need to, go on with our scanning effort and get the scientific proof we need to be able to go to court, because this is always our ultimate goal, and which we will achieve. That I'm absolutely sure. So the idea is indeed, as Katherine just said, is that we organize various scanning events, and each time we plan an event that we raise funds for this. The tariff is 1,200 euros per day, so that we can scan a group of maybe 10 people. We'll see later if we can bring larger groups once we have actually agreed on the scanning protocol, and that is the method we use each time. So I just wanted to
No, I didn't.
this, but let's say actually I'll give my agreement that this is the way forward.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to imply that there's any big. But basically, it's what I'm saying is I feel extremely bad because the actual burden on submitting the scientific proposal would have been mostly on me. But I didn't manage. I failed because I just can't. I've long passed what I'm actually normally physically capable of, and I'm now operating in emergency mode. So to be honest, I do not think that I will have the time or the capabilities to even, make a research proposal like that, because I planned out, how much I would have to do in March and April and May, and I just cannot see it happen. Maybe in May I could write something like that, but this would mean that for 2 months we're basically sitting on our hands.
Correct.
And what I really, really would like to push for is that we go for this, because 2018, this entire edifice of crime is utterly being ripped to shreds. So we already have 2 court cases in the courts in Europe actively running, both of them with directed, not just gang stalking, but directed energy weapons, and one of them already confirmed with chipping. Okay, so this is the time to really push towards. So I would propose the following strategy, and I'm sorry, I have to look back into the chat and actually get all the comments that people are making, but I'd make the following proposal. Now, I would say we raise 1,200 euros for a day of scanning. Okay. Now, this 1 day of scanning, considering how much we managed to do last time when Melanie and I were just scanned, and how fiddly it is to actually pin it down, because these, the measuring equipment that the university has is very good, but basically what they have is these big conical antennas. Okay. Now, the bug detector is just a little antenna with which you can actually hone in on the point.
Yeah.
Now, I had originally planned to actually show the professors using the implants in my own head, right, and show him exactly what we are looking for. But what happened is that exactly on the day I was traveling to Brussels, as people know because I've publicly reported about it, they broke into my flat when I just popped into the post office, opened my packed bags, and literally the post office is, a stone's throw, and took out my measuring devices, including the bug detector. So I arrived in Brussels, and suddenly I opened my bag and my measuring devices had gone. Nothing else was touched. So this was targeted sabotage by Swiss Intel to specifically take away the measuring devices that I wanted to communicate with the professor in Belgium. So then these measuring devices were then returned, and that was the incident where they put a dead bird with its eyes gouged out into my attic, and that's also documented. But so what I would propose is the following. I'm telling you this so that you are exactly on the same page as we are. What I still didn't have is a chance of going to this professor, showing my bug detector, and actually spend a couple of hours with him and say, okay, listen here, professor, here is the chip. You can see it flash up. Now we're going to tweak your measuring equipment until you, with your big conical antennas, which are great, but frankly not that, actually that fine in the local resolution, until we actually figure out which frequency is coming from these chips that I can see on the bug detector. Okay. Now, I would expect as a scientist that we need at least one day with the professor, Melanie and I, to sit down in great detail, do this. So in other words, what we are asking is for all to do a fundraising of 1,200 euros for us in the first instance, to have the opportunity to work closely for an entire day with him. Last time we didn't have a day.
No, we had half a day, and it was actually for them an investment of 600 euros,
Exactly.
But already this half a day, I thought it was quite productive, because we fine-tuned the method, and we need still, as Katherine says, at least a day with him to be absolutely sure that this is the way we do it and that we agree on this scientific method.
Yeah, exactly.
That everybody will then be scanned towards the scanning protocol that we'll have officially established.
Exactly. And basically that is not as easy as it sounds. It's not just as simple as, waving an antenna around and then the results pop out, because basically the professor was never seen this technology before and has never had any experience. The entire equipment is also tuned towards other electromagnetic devices, not towards medical implants. Okay. So it's a big difference if you're scanning the electrosmog from maybe a computer screen, or maybe the electrosmog or the radiation coming from a mobile phone antenna. And if you really want to have military technology, bio implants detected. So, we still have to convince ourselves that the equipment that's there is the best one. It can certainly pick up the chips, because they found out that my body is emitting in the megahertz range in a way that shouldn't be. So it can certainly pick it up, but then we want to find out, can we really hone in on the location? Because what is important for the victims is actually three things. Number one, find out, do they have implants or not? Number two, find out where are the implants located, where exactly in the body, because this is then very important, because once you know where your implants are, you can go to a dermatologist who is an expert in laser surgery or cosmetic surgery, and actually tell him to look in that point exactly for any sort of laser surgery scars or any other needle marks or any kind of small scars that might indicate that you have been non-consensually implanted. Okay, and the third step is to measure, but really distinguish between chips and measure which frequency precisely these chips are being emitting on, because once you know the frequency, you can look up who's licensed the frequency, and you can find out who is actually abusing you. Okay, so this is the three-step process. And basically, I would say that we should do a fundraising for 1,200 euros for one day of scanning of Melanie and I. This is not because, Melanie and I, we want the results for all court cases and then we're going to say bye. No, this is to basically set up a protocol that then we can use for absolutely everybody. But I think, Melanie, you probably agree with me that, the first time we had the scanning, it was the only reason it didn't end up to be chaotic is because of your amazing event organizational skills, I would say. It was a lot of people, right?
Yeah, correct. So, but, we have learned from this, and, we have the right to make some mistakes. We just have to make sure that we don't make the same mistake again. So we have learned from this, and indeed, I can only confirm what Katherine said, that the day or half a day we had with the professor actually to really test out the scanning protocol and really dial in and see what we need, what equipment, how long we need to scan, and where exactly the location and everything what Katherine just explained really made a we made big progress, I think, there, and this is really what we need. So I totally agree that we would need 1,200 euros for one scanning, another scanning meeting with Katherine, the professors, and I, to then actually agree on the method. And this is the method we're going to use to scan larger groups, our members. and then with the results, which will hopefully be positive and proof without any doubt scientifically that these people are unfortunately non-consensually implanted, then we can go to court. So this is really what we need to do. So we do hope that we'll find some other generous donors like we had Amalia and Hannelore, because that really helped us forward.
Absolutely. I mean, frankly, it was entirely due to their investment that we could even get this far. But I think this is what people have to realize is just, frankly, what a world premiere this is. Okay, because most researchers, most honest researchers we're talking to, have never ever heard about this. Okay, and they can't even imagine that so many people could possibly be non-consensually implanted. And also they have no idea what to actually look for. So we need to basically work with them slowly. But it is also a world premiere that now we have set up an actual collaboration with the university and with very good people, I have to say. So the people, who Melanie managed to set up in a collaboration with are really top. And this is actually what we are aiming for. Okay. So I
also feel that it's really a genuine wish to help us and to support all these victims of these horrific crimes. We, as I said, we just need to fine tune the message, and then we can really scan larger groups and get the proof we need to go to court.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is it. And the other thing I want to say is just how very urgent it is that we get some money in. Because there are bills coming in, literally even including for the upkeep of the website, of the ICATOR website, just to keep that going. But also it has to be said that the entire debacle with Hospital Erasmus has consumed extensive funds. Okay, so there had to be translational work. This is not money down the pan by any means, because Melanie's case is actually a flagship case. It is absolutely seminal. She has excellent evidence, and everything that was put into translating, so translating documents to actually put in for her case, will also be used for the subsequent court case. So this is kind of the legal expenditure ahead of time, and we have literally, it was an extremely unfortunate event, but through the entire work that we did, we have assembled an absolutely, solid case, I would say by now, with experts who actually have come forward and have submitted testimonies that are absolutely bombshell. And that could not have happened without the investment that we already received. So basically, the current status is that Melanie's case is now supported by actually high-profile people who cannot be explained away by any means.
It will really high-profile people, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we're really, really.
I would like to thank on air, by the way.
Exactly. So
that they have, stepped in and stepped up to the plate and to the situation, because this will really be difficult, I think, for any court to overlook this kind of evidence and these kind of statements.
Absolutely. And now we actually are in a better state than we've ever been before, and every contribution that has now been paid for is basically propelling this entire thing forward. So please don't consider, because I think I have been contacted by a couple of people who expressed frustration that the scanning nothing has happened since October even, or nothing has happened since May, I was told. And you don't realize that actually we've been working flat out, but this is just how slow it is when you have to convince people about, of something that they have never heard about. And the university has already, made a big investment that they put out of their own pocket, really,
Yeah.
So this is it. And so I would like to really urge people to take this seriously. It is extremely urgent, actually, that we get money in, because we have running costs to cover, like the website of ICATOR and so on. But many, many other little things that are, being used right now to actually propel this court case forward. And so if you can donate anything, literally any sum is already helpful. Okay, any sum. And the more people donate, there's also a sort of group effect. When people can see that others have donated, they are more likely to donate. Okay, so one of the things I would like to show you is the hang on, the ICATOR website, so that you know where to go to donate. So let me share my screen. If you go to ICATOR, so ICATOR.be, this is ICATOR. .be is for Belgium, because Melanie is in Belgium, in Brussels, right, in the in the belly of the beast. So if you go there to ICATOR.be, there's a tab called GoFundMe, and on the GoFundMe page, you'll go straight through here to the GoFundMe page, where you can literally just click hit. Sorry, this is in German, but I think for you it should appear in English when you go onto the site. And you just click this button, and then you just enter the bank transfer details. And I am just actually really pleased to see that already 24 minutes ago somebody has just donated. You know,
wow, well, fantastic. I just wanted to add to this, Katherine, because sometimes people are a bit confused. When you donate, I heard that some people get a message, thank you for donating to Guam, Puerto Rico. You see there the name appearing just under the button. We have to find out how to change that to thank you for donating to ICATOR, basically. Guam is our webmaster, so do not be confused by this or disheartened. The money goes to ICATOR. We'll just have to, it's just a technical issue we have to solve.
Exactly. So I think what it is that whoever sets up the actual GoFundMe has to give their name, and I think Kwam honestly gave his name, but then name I think that's the person you are giving money to. But be assured, all the money reaches ICATOR and reaches Melanie, and we do trust Kwam fully. That's why.
That's true.
In charge of this. He's a very nice guy. I spoke to him as well, and you know, he does his best to help us. So please go onto this page and do donate. What I would like to do is maybe just actually, if I've got a minute, I just want.
If I can, maybe just if you could just show the ICATOR page again, Katherine. So I would like to explain to people there is indeed the GoFundMe page. So most people prefer to donate via the internet. But if you go to the Join Us section, below you will find also our IBAN number and our bank details. So if you go a little bit further down, you see ICATOR bank transfer details, and there you have the IBAN number. So if people prefer to do a bank transfer to our account, they can also do this.
Yes, let me just force the screen to be on me. So what Melanie said is that if you go to ICATOR.be, you click on Join Us here, and then you get the actual bank details of ICATOR, which is here. And if you use the bank details and you just do a transfer within the Eurozone, I think there are no fees.
Correct.
Exactly. And if you use the GoFundMe page, so if you use this, I think there's a platform fee of 5% or something like that. So you can either donate by ICATOR or, you know, I mean, keep the fees in mind, because the idea is to get as much money to ICATOR as possible. So the fee here is, I think, 5% on ICATOR that goes to GoFundMe. But if you do a bank transfer within the Eurozone, it is for free to use the direct bank details here. However, if you are, I think, outside the Eurozone, you have to know what sort of bank charges your bank whacks on when you do a transfer from another currency to euros. Some banks don't have any fees or just minimal fees. But if you're doing a transfer from the US, for example, it might be cheaper to use GoFundMe, or it might be cheaper to do a direct bank transfer. We don't know, but you know, that's.
I think it's cheaper to transfer by GoFundMe.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I wanted to do, just very, very briefly, because I know that there are a lot of people in the chat, I have been trying to actually do a backup. So hang on, let me see, because the chat is usually moving so fast that I can barely keep up. So I I am just going to do a quick search. Hang on.
Yes, we again have a lot of reactions, like usually.
Exactly. So actually, by the way, one of the things that I find incredibly amusing is that they're still, to this day, they're still sending trolls to kind of troll the chat. And the idea behind the trolling of the chat is most of the time to frustrate other victims, to make them feel like they are actually you know, attacked, but also to distract people as they're watching us, and keep make them keep looking at the chat. Now, actually, my goodness, there are so many messages. I find it extremely hard to actually go through them. So I would like to say to our listeners, if you've got any questions that you would like to ask us right now, could you please, you know, post them in the chat now? Any sort of question that you want to know, like what the timescales are or this or that. Okay, so I can see that there are private chats still happening in the chat, but I will wait for a few more minutes and actually see if there's any direct questions. In the meantime, I will try to fill you in on the, you know, on the most obvious questions. Maybe what is the time scale? So the time scale for this entire thing, well, I think we should get going as quickly as possible, frankly. So I think throughout.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. It would be great to be able to do it still this month, you know, one event in March or April at the latest. Yeah.
April at the latest. So I think we should aim for having it done in March, and then always know that we will be delayed by at least 2 weeks anyway. So I think if we aim for March, we might be able to do one in 6 weeks' time and maybe mid-April.
Yeah.
So, Melanie,
sounds good.
yeah, Melanie is there in Brussels throughout. I'm in Zurich, so I would have to make my way. Okay, so you know, this would be the best way to do it. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we'll get lucky and we get even more than 1,200 euros. Then we can maybe help Katherine a little bit with her travel expenses as well, because it does cost you always 400 or 500 euros
yeah, and
almost if you come for you know a few days stay.
Absolutely,
it is expensive, and so if we raise more, maybe we can help you a little bit with your travel expenses and thus make the scanning happen as quickly as possible.
So I so far paid it out of my own pocket, or I try to use a bit of fuel help with the donations. So but anyway, so they say, Katherine, do you believe we should eventually make our own nanobots to protect us? Well, I don't think we have you know, the possibility. Okay. Okay, somebody says, any indicators that may suggest one has been bugged without measuring instrumentation? Yes, there is indeed. So the indications that you are bugged, that you can find out yourself is, I mean, I think threefold. Number one is, first of all, you feel pain always in the same location. And you can, I think with time, you can find out if actually this sort of pain is triggered by harassment. Now, you can be caused to feel pain even with a direct pencil beam of microwaves and an actual pulse of microwaves that can actually punch through walls. So they do that with me regularly. Typically, if it's very painful, you might end up with bruising. So if you feel pain and you end up with bruising by itself, it might be a microwave beam. If you don't have bruising, it could be a chip. But the best way to tell if it's a chip or not is if you feel pain and you still feel, say, a pulsating pain. If you, for example, turn around very quickly, or if you go down into a cellar, if the pain doesn't stop, it's most likely a chip. If the pain stops or varies in the location or the intensity, then they might be shooting at you with an actual coordinated beam. So this is the way to do it. And then the third option is if you feel like, oh, actually there's four. So the other way to do it is some chips are actually palpable. For example, I've got a chip that was put into during a microsurgery in my lower lip, and that you can actually see if I turn my lip upside down, which I'm not going to do because it's disgusting. You can actually see the chip move around under the skin, and you can actually feel it. So if I just hold my lip between two fingers, I can feel a peppercorn-sized chip that was put on my lower lip. Now, these sort of, that's the rough size. They can also be smaller, but you can actually feel some of the chips in your body. And then the final way is to, that's something that Melanie actually had some success with and told me, which is to go to an expert dermatologist who's an expert in typically cosmetic surgery for the face, because that's where they use laser surgery. And these people will have an eye for picking out laser surgery scars. So if you have, you know, these are the ways you can check if you have a chip, if you don't have a high frequency measuring equipment. Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to add that most people, when they come to us, they always describe the same symptoms, which, for lack of a better word, symptoms, because symptoms actually to describe a disease. This is not a disease, this is a crime, but their complaints, let's say, are always the same. They feel electrical shock sensations, ringing ear, pain, as Katherine says, you know, in the limbs, and, you know, always the same places. Auditory symptoms like ringing ears, and then there's also the technology voice to skull, where you can actually make the victims hear voices. They feel an electrical current going through their body, vibration, excruciating headaches, cardiac problems, or you know, arrhythmias, how do you say, without any cardiac problems before. These are always the main complaints: extreme fatigue, no energy, or sleeplessness, the feeling of having the perception of having directed dreams, or, you know, these are always the same complaints that come back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've just I completely agree. I was listening and reading at the same time, and there's one very good question. Let me just I'm always trying to do a backup copy so I can go through the chat and actually see if I missed any questions. So there's one direct question here, and hang on, let me just see where it was. It is oh God, sorry, here. Okay, so Katherine, one direct question, please. What can ICATOR members expect concerning paid membership, and when, please?
Yeah, so the idea of ICATOR is, of course, that there is some kind of representation of the members, of the victims, so that we the victims as a group are represented. We're working with various members of the European Parliament to actually achieve appropriate EU legislation, so to regulate these technologies and ban any technology that is that can manipulate the human body and mind. That is the first objective, to have a representation of the victims group of this new form of terrorism, I would say. And the second is what we just discussed, that we're organizing scannings for our members to provide them with the evidence, scientific evidence of the crimes committed against them. But we can only do this, of course, if we have a budget to be able to perform these tests. These are our main activities.
Yeah. So, and in actual, in terms of the time frame, so for paid membership, so let me just list, because I'm an ICATOR member as well, so I've you know, paid the fee as well last year. So what did you get for your money, if you want to put it like that? What you got for your money last year was that we have made contact with a university professor that is highly regarded. He has a professional Faraday cage. We have conducted 2 measuring events. Where he has, you know, basically donated his time to actually help us. We have, in last year, I have figured out where my body chips are, thanks to Melanie's help. And the first scanning event, actually the first scanning event that was even without the professor, went pretty much bottom up to the untrained eye, but actually was a thundering success, because Melanie taught me where my chips are. We found it with this bug detector. I recommended this bug detector for everybody. I taught people how to use it, and I collected last year a bunch of videos where people scanned themselves, which allowed me to actually, with confidence, talk publicly about people being implanted in the same places, having a body area network that we then recognized as actually what's happening. Throughout the summer, we were working with this university and actually understanding what the outcome was. and convincing the university to continue to work with us. And it was also last year we tried to make contact with high-profile people who were running a charity, a human rights charity. That was Melanie's absolutely phenomenal work. I also spent a lot of time working the high-profile expert that has now come forward and really begging him to come forward, and I was filling him in. So we spent absolutely ages actually working with those people. And all this, and then we had the second scanning event where we finally basically chiseled into stone this collaboration with the professor, and achieved last year basically the use of this facility and his collaboration. So the bottom line last year, this is what you got for your money. So you had 2 people work flat out to find, set up a facility at a professional lab. Find out that it's a body area network, recommend a measuring device for you, teach you how to get this done, and I could also find you somebody who is going to be recognized by a French-speaking courts as a really kick-ass expert. So this is what you got for your money last year. What I would like you to get for your money this year is that we spend. But of course, right, the membership fee, it has to be said, the membership fee, barely, it doesn't even cover the running costs of ICATOR, okay? So don't think, okay, I think the membership, by the way, what's the membership fee again?
It's 160 euros per year.
Exactly. So it's sorry, how much is it again? 160?
160 euros per year.
Exactly. So 160 euros per year, okay?
So maybe 13 euros per month or so. I mean, it's
exactly.
Really...
Exactly. So, for 13 euros per month, what you basically guarantee is that, Melanie can keep the lights on and can continue working on ICATOR, just covering the running costs. And then special events like scanning events, unfortunately, we can't just pay them from the membership fee. So you have to invest again. But basically, your membership fee pays for Melanie even being able to lobby people to have these scanning events. Okay, so this is how it works. So this is what you got.
Also, we will organize. We have in the past already organized 2 covered harassment conferences. With really experts coming from all over the world, and scientists, doctors, lawyers, former representatives of the secret services. So this has been really an event that brought all stakeholders together and really started an international debate on these issues. So all this we're doing, but we're basically a one-man or two-man or women band here that do most of the work. Well, we do have colleagues, of course, but for their, let's say, organizational or timetable reasons, schedule reasons, they cannot always be here and support us. So it's Katherine has been, and I would like to thank her publicly for this, one of my biggest supports in actually achieving what I have achieved until now. And it will go on.
Oh, heck, it will go on. We're just getting started, Melanie. Yeah. Last year was the first year of me working with Melanie. And now we're a team, and now we're actually kicking ass. Actually, I forgot something what people got for their money, which is because people have to realize that Melanie's court case and my court case are also interwoven with the progress here. But another thing that you guys got out of this is that I drove the throat implant of Melanie down to Switzerland, and we had a Swiss analyze it, and actually for the first time in human history find an implanted strangulator, or at least an implanted synthetic something or another in her throat,
biomedical piece, let's say, or
exactly, synthetic biomedical piece that just so happened to have been used to strangle her, right? So exactly, so we've got that, and that is again a world premiere. So again, the drive, and I remind people that the cost we incurred just doing that, and this is relevant for all the people, because once you can prove in court that an entire strangulator has been implanted in a person and has been used on somebody, it's not that hard to actually prove that, there are little cuts and there are little microchips in people, okay? So this is a 3.5 centimeter black piece, people, okay? Yeah. And we managed to prove that it's synthetic, but the actual total cost of just that was, first of all, 500 euros round trip for me to actually go to Brussels and back. And then my car was sabotaged on the day I had to be on the lab, leading to damages of 1,400 euros for car repair, and then 230 euros for just a taxi for me to still make the day, you know, and actually spite the intelligence agency. So if you like, that in itself cost 2,000 euros. Okay. So
yeah, and then there was also still the cost for the analysis.
400 exactly.
Was between 400 to 500 euros. Also was
Exactly.
I think was the cost for the analysis.
Yeah, but
it is, as Katherine said, it's really a flagship result. In the case that I think it might be a world premiere indeed, that we have such a biomedical piece removed and that we could have it analyzed by a professional lab, and it does confirm. Katherine, can you just remind us what were the main components of this piece?
So this piece, I can remind you, and I can point people to, I think, Techno Crime Fighters Forum number 10, when we actually show the results, where people can see the actual part that was operated out of Melanie's throat. I think it's, hang on, let me check, Techno Crime Fighters Forum 10. I think that's it.
Yeah, we have a photo of it also.
Yes, but I think if we do, but hang on, let me just let me find it, because yes, it's 26. It's Techno Crime Fighters Forum 26. If you go to minute mark 42, and I can show this right now so that people see with their own eyes what we've achieved. At minute mark 42, I am presenting the results from the Swiss lab. This is the actual scan result. At the top left, you will see the microscope image of the throat implant that was operated out of Melanie's throat. You can see these white structures, including white fibers, white lines, absolutely everywhere. And the little red circle is the X-ray beam that is doing X-ray fluorescence analysis on the sample. And in red down here, you will find the atomic composition of whatever is under that, at this point where the white stuff is. Now, it turns out, doing several of these analyses on the structure, that the white stuff is actually titanium. So that's this big peak with the blue line highlighting it. So these two bumps in the spectrum are titanium, indicating that piece. So first of all, ignore the double hump here, this camel hump. That is just an artifact of the source. Ignore this. Then you've got a bunch of little humps, and then you've got a massive hump here and a massive hump there. And this hump is indicating titanium. That hump is indicating iron in the source, exactly at this point where the white stuff is. Now, what this proves is that the white stuff is basically, to a very large fraction, titanium and iron. Now, titanium does not naturally appear in the human body. So with that, we basically nailed that this is a synthetic piece put into Melanie's throat, because the human body cannot produce that. There's other scan results of other structures that were visible, but here you can see these white fibers very clearly that transfuse the entire sample. And then also at the very beginning, I think you can even see, hang on, let me scan to the right place. Yes, here at minute mark 22 minutes and 42 seconds, you can see me hold up this black thing, the sample itself that was taken to the Swiss lab. Okay. And this is actually, when it was in Melanie's throat, I think this length was 3.5 centimeters, and that's 1.5 centimeters, and it's 1.5 centimeters thick. And what I'm holding is actually just 1/2 of the piece, because it has been cut through transversely in the transverse plane. So this was the stuff, and I have to say it was pretty seminal, because I nearly died on the motorway driving it back to Switzerland, because there were 2 attacks on me, and I almost was pushed into the barrier on the motorway. So this was basically what you get for 160 euros per year. Is you get 2 Navy SEALs, right, fighting with their life for you. I mean, come on, right? I mean, this is, compare it to like the subscription to whatever it's called, like the BILAG in Switzerland and the Rundfunkgebühr in Germany, right? The public broadcasting subscription. I mean, if you're paying, £160 for the BBC, you might as well pay for Melanie and me, because, hey, the show you get out of us is much better than what you find on the BBC. This is how I see it anyway. So now, but what can you expect? So there were a couple more questions that I want to answer very quickly. Very good questions. So what you should expect this year is what we outlined, to set up an actual, systematic scanning with the professor, and help with finding your first of all, your implants, and second of all, what exact frequency are they emitting on, which allows you to find out who has licensed it, and which allows you to find who you should sue in court. Okay, so this is the thing.
Yeah, I would like to add also that another area I'm working on is actually to find, you know, I mean, even if you don't see us, you know, all the time, we're always, you know, still working in the back and never stopping actually our efforts, is that I'm also working behind the scenes in finding actually surgeons that can help us remove these implants in our bodies. As Katherine says, we have already found dermatologists that can help us with, you know, actually confirming these surgical laser scars on our bodies, which is one element that we will use in court. But right now, I'm working behind the scenes in finding actually surgeons that can actually perform these operations to remove foreign bodies, you know, out of the human body. And as it was done with me in my throat, but that was more the surgeon didn't expect to find what he did find. So, but now I'm looking for really surgeons, professional surgeons that can help us remove these foreign bodies, these implants, you know, and where they can still be removed, because some of them unfortunately cannot be removed anymore, and there we will need to come to either juridical or political solution to deactivate permanently any devices that interact with our bodies. And the ones that can be removed surgically, I hope to find the surgeons that will perform these operations in this time fully knowing what they're doing.
Exactly, and also being fully watched, because I think one of the things that it actually leads me on to the next question, because somebody said, okay, one other question: under what circumstances are most people vulnerable and able to be chipped from what you know? So here's the answer. People have been and are vulnerable to, but we have evidence that people have been chipped in hospitals during operations. People have been chipped in hospitals without having operations, just literally falling asleep in a hospital. They were implanted. We have the testimony of an FBI agent saying that victims in the US have been implanted when they had car accidents. They were implanted in the ambulance. Victims, we have the statement of the MI6 whistleblower Carl Clark, who basically says that the intelligence agencies regularly break into people's homes by anesthetizing them, by pumping gas under the through the letterbox or under the door into the room and coming in. And I have evidence myself that they broke into either into a hotel room or they broke into my private home, and they have implanted me in the navel. And the laser surgery scar is photographed by my doctors on my website under court cases and evidence. So this is stop007.org. And I also have frequency emissions measured and filmed with a bug detector when they turned on this chip in my navel. And since then, it's being used to actually torture me. And this was implanted in by Swiss intelligence here in Zurich. And so you can be implanted, to summarize, in a hospital, you can be implanted in a hotel, and you can be implanted in your private home. Basically, you can be implanted freaking anywhere. I think, you know, the total amount of time taken to actually do an implant. So when you wake up, you can actually have a look with your own eyes. A fresh laser surgery scar looks like what my doctor photographed on the image you can see on my website. Now, with the laser scalpel, when you cut, it doesn't even bleed because the blood coagulates. So it's actually almost Formula One style. You can cut somebody, put in a chip, seal it with tissue glue, and then when the person wakes up, all they will have is maybe a scratch. They will see a scratch, and these laser surgery scars are very, very thin. Now, the tissue is going to inflame a bit, and as you can see on my navel, But then again, you know, getting into my navel must have been a bit involved. So I would expect that on your tissue, you just see a scratch, maybe a deeper scratch that's slightly inflamed along the cut. Now, given that,
I would like to add that the target groups, because it's indeed vulnerable people, we have more women than men that are being victims. I think maybe 60 to 70% are female, and the rest are male. There's a high number of single moms that come to our scannings, and unfortunately, what I must say is that recently I've organized a few of these scanning events in the past. There were more and more single moms that came with their children, and we have found tips in children as well. Unfortunately, I must say. So definitely they're looking for vulnerable people, isolated people. Often it's single women that do not live in their home country, but they have no family support around. And Katherine, as Katherine said, it is indeed very easy to implant a person. All you need is a needle, basically. And the intelligence services do have sleeping gas or other drugs that they use that will block your memory, that will come into your home and implant you there, and give you a drug that will basically block your memory, and you will have no recollection of this attack.
Absolutely, I can completely back that up, and I think Dr. John Hall speaks of the female victim rate to be, I think, 70 to 80%. So that is absolutely true. And yes, but then, you know, talking about vulnerable, you don't even have to be alone, because they have no problem with anesthetizing an entire family. And I think when you were first, I think even when you were first implanted, you were actually, you know, not alone in the house. There were several people. Is that right? I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I will have I was not alone, but I was a child and with a baby, as it were. So that was no risk to them, unfortunately. But what I can confirm is that we do have entire families that came and that wanted to be scanned. And not only single moms, we had really, I think there's one famous case now in America who was actually a lawyer, Richard Kane. He did a few radio shows also about this, and where his entire family is implanted, which means himself, his two young sons, and his wife, I believe. So
Yeah.
Yes, they will have no scruples on experimenting on an entire family and young children as well.
Yeah, I actually, based on what I have seen in my own investigations and the cases I'm dealing with, and the actual trend of them, I would actually go as far as saying when they implant one person, they implant the entire family. Because once you move into the realm of neurotech, you'll realize that actually there you can do social experiments and play people off against each other when they implanted. So I think that's also something that they do, I would say, almost by default. But anyway, so now even further questions. So people were saying, actually, hang on, let me just scroll up because it's like moving away so fast. So, okay. Okay, so somebody complained about us talking about implants and not about satellites. Now, the thing about implants is that the actual, you know, their range, we have a whistleblower who came forward and he said that these implants can be read out up to, I think back then it was something like 50 meters or something like that. So that was the sensing capabilities with the basic antenna. I think they could be read out over much bigger distances, but I don't think that a chip implant can be read out by satellite. So I think because of physical limitations, the chips you can be shot at from a satellite, possibly. But I think the really insidious thing is that these chips are actually being accessed from much closer by. So I would expect that the mobile phone communication can be used, Wi-Fi can be used, shots from neighbors can be used, and in absolutely every single case that I've dealt with that's certified, neighbors were always involved. So one comment said, laughed at me and said, oh, well, no one hang on, where's it? Here. Perps aren't going to follow you everywhere with portable equipment. They will use your own electronic devices to lock into your position. Well, they will use your own electronic devices to lock you into your in position, but they will also follow you everywhere with portable equipment. They will actually do that, and we have evidence for that. Okay. Then I think let me just reply to the last couple of questions.
And then maybe take 2 or 3 more, and then we maybe can wrap it up for this time. And we could maybe, I don't know, if you have time next Friday, we could do a Techno-Kriminalermittler.
In German, I would say. That would be very good. Yeah, I think that would be very good. So then somebody says, Dr. Horton, what information do you have on the sexual targeting, rape and stimulation? This is so horrific for me. Well, the information I have is that people are implanted in the genital region, and that can be used to rape people sexually by remote control. It can be used to force orgasms. It can also be used to inhibit orgasms or inhibit sexual stimulation, so it's always both ways. Once people are implanted, they typically are raped daily or sometimes several times per day. Sometimes it's accompanied with pain, and you get any sort of rape that you can imagine. But as far as I can see, it's done 2 ways. It's done with chips implanted in the genitals, and it's sometimes done with electromagnetic radiation and pulsed shots to the genitals. You know, and this is the 2 things I have heard. I don't know. Do you have something to add to that, Melanie? Meanwhile, I will.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I've met many victims now since the several years I'm taking care of this problem, and most of the female victims, indeed, there were some males as well that complained about that, but most of the female victims seem to be raped daily electronically. That there were a lot of complaints about sexual assault, indeed. In the genitals, and even in the rectum area, and I can say that I have unfortunately made this experience myself, so I can definitely relate to that. But almost every female victim that I met complained about being sexually assaulted, and there seem to be people that are willing to pay large amounts of money to be able to use or abuse the woman with their joystick, so to speak, use her as a sex toy.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think now we have gone through pretty much everything, I think. So there might be still some questions, but I think it's now the chat is moving so fast. I'm actually struggling to keep up. I think we have answered, I think, most of the questions. But what we can do is maybe read through the chat later, and then, you know, see if there's anything unanswered. But I think so for today, we've already done a lot. So okay, so this is it. Please help us with the fundraising, because this is absolutely urgent, and the timing is crucial. Because, as I said, we have 2 court cases running in parallel in Switzerland and in France, and this is a court case for Belgium with international ramifications. So please help us to actually get the chip scanning going now, and so that we can get this started, because what I would like to see is that more and more court cases start popping up everywhere, left, right, and center in 2018. So, you know, please, what we're looking for in the first installment is 1,200 euros for Melanie and myself to actually work another day with the professor in Belgium. And if you could possibly donate 1,000 or raise 1,500, that would help us, you know, with travel expenses and so on. And then the idea is that we report back about that scanning event, and then we have hopefully after that the next one will be the scanning for everybody. This is the idea.
For a larger group. I have already, I must say, fully packed lists of members or new members that have joined that need to be scanned. So we will set that in motion. Yeah.
Exactly. And in the meantime, for the people who are desperate to know right now, please go to my website, stop007.org. And if you go to FAQ, you will find the device list, and you will find the ICATOR bug detector, with a link to a vendor. I don't have a commercial relationship with the ICATOR vendor at all. So, you know, maybe I should, you know, given that I'm advertising this thing, I could fund it, you know, our endeavor. But anyway, so, exactly, get some commercial kind of kickbacks. But anyway, so this is basically the news now. Thank you for listening. We will be here next week in German. And, you know, this year, just like last year, we will literally almost give our life to actually help you all. So thank you for listening, and bye for now. See you hopefully next week.
Bye for now, and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.